I wasn't even supposed to be there. Just another Thursday drive through the Highlands, mind on invoices and deadlines until a flash of silver stabbed through my peripheral vision. Victoria's Mercedes GLS. The one I bought her. The one that belonged in our garage. Instead, it sat smugly at the gate of Ethan Brooks's house, my son-in-law's house. My grip on the wheel tightened until my knuckles blanched. Victoria was supposed to be across town, smiling her way through some pretentious luncheon at the Belmont Country Club. That's what she told me this morning, looking me straight in the eye. Now she was here. I rolled past without slowing, every nerve screaming, and parked 2 houses down. My pulse was a jackhammer in my skull. I moved up the side yard, shadows clinging to me like a second skin, and there it was, a half-open window. Warm air drifted out, carrying words I will never forget. When the old man finally signs the papers, Ethan's voice cut like a blade, "We'll have everything we planned for." And then her laugh. That rehearsed syrup-sweet laugh I'd heard for 25 years. 25 years of playing the devoted wife, Victoria said, almost giddy. He'll never see it coming. The ground tilted. My stomach dropped. They went on my construction company, the Aspen Cabin. Every rental property I'd built with my own hands, counting them off like items in a shopping cart. 2 people I trusted above all others, conspiring to strip me bare. 8 sweeks snapped under my boot. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. For 3 long seconds, the only sound was my own heartbeat, violent, furious, and certain of one thing. They had just declared war on me, and I would burn their plans to ash. If this story touched your heart, press 1 the comments. If you think it could have been handled differently, press 2. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? People love to say you can't build a solid life without trust. I've built skyscrapers that defy gravity, bridges that laugh in the face of storms, luxury homes where every beam is a promise of permanence. I thought trust was just another foundation until I learned it can crumble faster than any building I've ever seen. My name is Michael Grant. For 35 years, I've run Grant Construction here in Denver. I started with a beat-up Ford pickup, a borrowed toolbox, and enough grit to wear down a mountain. Today, my company handles multi-million-dollar projects, municipal centers, corporate headquarters, resorts meant to stand a century or more. If it was built to last, I wanted my name on it. Victoria came into my life when I was 35. She was 22, a secretary at an architecture firm where I'd done renovations. I met her at their Christmas party. She laughed, really laughed, at some half-baked joke about concrete mixers, and I thought her smile could stop traffic. 6 months later, we were married. For the first decade, we were a team. I poured my energy into the business. She built a home that radiated warmth. We celebrated milestones, hosted galas, and stood together at ribbon cuttings. When our daughter, Lauren, was born, I thought my life was complete. She grew into a woman with her own spine of steel, a private practice in psychology, a reputation for honesty, and a marriage to Ethan Brooks, a young attorney I believed was as sharp as he was decent. I welcomed Ethan. We golfed, we toasted with expensive whiskey. I gave him legal work. He felt like family. I was wrong. Somewhere around year 20 of my marriage, the air shifted. Victoria's comments turned sharper vacations that didn't measure up to the Johnsons' country club memberships that weren't exclusive enough. I shrugged it off. I was providing. I thought that was enough. When I signed the $50 million Morrison Municipal Center contract, she already had floor plans for a new mansion before my pen left the paper. Intimacy cooled, replaced by dinner conversations that sounded like shopping lists of other wives' luxuries. Lauren saw it. She was busy building her life in Cherry Creek with Ethan, and Victoria was always visiting what I thought was maternal pride. But it was reconnaissance. Now, looking back, I see the pattern: her sudden obsession with my business accounts, the joint banking she insisted on while quietly opening her own credit lines, Ethan's casual curiosity about my assets in the Aspen Cabin. I chalked it up to interest. Stupid, maybe, but after 25 years of marriage, you don't assume your wife and son-in-law are drawing blueprints for your ruin. Not until the day you hear it with your own ears, spilling through a half-open window on a cold April afternoon, your wife's laughter, and your son-in-law's voice plotting how to take everything you've built. That's when the shock hits you like a steel beam to the chest, and the outrage? That's the part that keeps you standing. I stayed there longer than any sane man would pressed against the siding, listening to my own destruction being mapped out in real time. Every word was a nail in the coffin they'd built for me. Ethan's voice was steady, surgical, like he'd rehearsed this betrayal in front of a mirror. "We file in June," he said, not a hint of hesitation. "Irreconcilable differences. Under the new Colorado statutes, you'll get half of everything acquired during the marriage plus lifetime spousal support. The construction company's worth at least $12 million. Add the vacation properties, investments. We're looking at $20 million, easy." Victoria's reply cut deeper than any number could. She gave a little sigh, light as a feather, poisonous as arsenic. 25 years of my life," she said, "and he still has no idea. Honestly, Ethan, it's almost too easy." Paper rustled, like the sound of my life being filed away. Ethan's voice again, confident, certain. "We've got the bank statements, deeds, valuations, everything's in the folder. All you have to do is keep him thinking you're still the perfect wife until the day we file." That's when my hand went to my pocket, clumsy with adrenaline. My thumb found the record button. My hands shook, but I caught it all, every detail, every smug insult, every laugh at my expense. 25 years of marriage, reduced to a long con, finally paying off. The worst part? 5 minutes ago I would have sworn Victoria loved me. A tweet cracked under me boot. Silence, heavy, dangerous. "Did you hear that?" Victoria's voice was tight now. "Probably just the neighbor's cat," Ethan said after a pause. "Relax." I didn't move, didn't breathe. When their voices finally dropped into a lower hum, I slipped away, my pulse hammering. Back in my car, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. These hands had built a company from nothing. They'd built the life Victoria enjoyed. They'd walked our daughter down the aisle while her mother smiled like she'd earned the right to be proud. Now those same hands felt like loaded weapons I couldn't use yet. The drive home was a blur. My neighborhood looked the same. Perfect lawns, spring wreaths on the doors, but all I saw was Victoria's face in that window, laughing while my life was being carved up. Inside, the house felt hollow, not quiet dead. I walked each room slowly, taking inventory of the life they thought they could steal. The wedding photo on the mantel, the anniversary cards in the kitchen drawer, Lauren's baby pictures framed on the shelves I'd built myself. Every single thing suddenly felt like a prop in their performance. I poured a drink and sat in the leather chair Victoria had always called too ugly for the living room. I stared at the flames in the fireplace, the recording heavy in my pocket, and the memories came flooding back. The first date at that little Italian place downtown, our 10th anniversary cruise, Christmas mornings with Lauren. Were those moments real? Or just part of the act? It would have been easy, temptingly easy, to drive back to Ethan's and tear the truth out of them. But 35 years in business had taught me something important. Emotions lose battles. Information wins wars. 43 minutes of betrayal played back through my phone, crystal clear. My chest tightened, but the pain was cooling into something harder, colder, more dangerous. They thought I was just a man who could build skyscrapers and resorts. They had no idea I could build a plan to bury them. By dawn, I had my decision. No confrontation. Not yet. First, I'd dig deep enough to know every name, every account, every move they'd made. And then, I'd make them regret the day they decided to treat me like an easy target. By the next morning, my rage had cooled into something sharper, cold steel with an edge honed overnight. First call was to Bob Hayes, my accountant for more than 20 years. Bob had been there for every major contract, every IRS audit, every late-night number crunch before a bid. If anyone could comb through my financial life without Victoria catching wind, it was him. "I need a complete review," I told him. My voice was calm, but the muscles in my jaw ached from holding it there. "Personal accounts, business holdings, offshore if you have to. And I need it yesterday." Bob didn't ask why he'd heard that tone before. "Come by after lunch. I'll start pulling the records now." Next was Tony Ramirez, the private investigator I'd hired years ago to dig into a subcontractor who'd been padding invoices. Tony was discreet, relentless, and loyal, exactly what I needed. "This isn't business," I told him. "It's personal. Victoria and Ethan. I want eyes on them at all times. Discreet, thorough. And I want to know if anyone else is part of this." Tony's reply was a short grunt. Understood, you'll have daily reports. By 2 o'clock, I was in Bob's office. His monitors glowed with rows of transactions, every one a breadcrumb in the trail I needed. Mike, he said, leaning closer to the screen, in the last 8 months, there have been multiple transfers small enough to slip under the radar, but steady, totaling $42,000. My stomach tightened like someone had pulled a belt through the last notch. Where to? A joint savings account you're not on. The beneficiary is Ethan Brooks. The name hit harder than the number. Bob kept going, oblivious to the way my blood pressure was spiking. Also, several large purchases, designer clothes, spa treatments, private club lunches, not on your card, not from your usual places. Victoria's book club, I thought, the taste in my mouth turning metallic. At 5, Tony called with his first update. Your wife met Ethan at a coffee shop downtown. Saturday in the back corner, heads close for 45 minutes. No audio, but I saw them pass a manila folder. She left for the country club right after. I didn't need to guess what was inside. But at 9 o'clock, the phone call I got wasn't from Tony, it was from Lauren. Dad, she began, cautious. Has Mom seemed different to you? I forced my voice steady. What do you mean? She and Ethan have been asking me weird questions about your company, how it's structured, who owns what, if there are partners. It's not small talk, it feels calculated. Her words were a blade sliding between my ribs. Probably just curiosity, I said lightly. You know your mom, she likes details. I guess, Lauren replied, but her doubt was clear. When the call ended, I sat in my office staring at the dark window, my reflection staring back. Lauren could see through them. That meant I could use her carefully. By midnight, my plan was sketched out on a legal pad. I'd feed them information false, plausible, designed to lure them into chasing shadows while I tracked every step they took. They'd thought they were setting the stage for my downfall. Now, I was laying the groundwork for theirs. Friday morning, I walked into First National Bank, not like a husband with a problem, like a man preparing for war. Rick Palmer, the bank's president and my golf partner for 15 years, greeted me in his paneled office. He knew me well enough to skip the small talk. Mike, what's going on? I need immediate security holds on every joint account, every shared credit line, every auto pay tied to both our names. No transactions without photo ID, in person only. Rick's brows pulled together. That's a pretty serious lockdown. Let's just say I have legitimate reasons, I said evenly, and I want it done before lunch. He studied me for a beat, then nodded. It'll trigger alerts for both of you. I'm counting on it. By 11:45 a.m., the holds were live. At 12:03, the first alert came in Victoria's lunch tab at the Belmont Country Club. Declined. At 12:50, she called, her voice sharp with embarrassment. Michael, my card was declined in front of the ladies at lunch. The bank says there's a hold. Do you know anything about this? I kept my tone smooth. Security hold? Sounds serious. Did they say why? They just said we have to verify in person. It's humiliating. I'll check with Rick, I said, and hung up before she could push further. By 2:30, Tony Ramirez reported Ethan had tried to withdraw from his joint account with Victoria. Denied. Then he tried to dip into Lauren's education fund, also frozen. I pictured him pacing his office, barking into the phone, trying to intimidate bank staff. Men like Ethan were dangerous when they thought they held the cards. Strip them of leverage and they flailed. While they scrambled, I dug deeper. Through industry contacts, I confirmed what I suspected. Ethan was already in trouble with the Colorado Bar Association. 2 subcontractors had filed formal complaints for non-payment. He'd collected legal fees from a client and forgotten to pay the trades. The paper trail was clean: dates, amounts, names. That was my next lever. Saturday morning, Tony called again. They met at Ethan's office last night. Tense. No smiles. Body language says crisis mode. I smiled. Good, let them sweat. By Sunday, it was time to feed them the bait. Using a separate account, I accidentally left a printed summary of my company's so-called asset structure, plausible enough to look real, poisoned just enough to be useless in my home office. Monday morning, Tony's update came in. Victoria had photographed every page. Perfect. They'd waste days chasing dead ends while I tightened the noose. This wasn't about rage anymore. Rage is messy. This was about control, about putting them exactly where I wanted them, and letting them know when the moment came that the game they thought they were winning was mine all along. 2 days later, Tony finally brought me the kind of news I'd been waiting for. "I've got audio," he said, his voice low but carrying a weight I recognized. "Crystal clear. Last night, Ethan and Victoria met again. You're going to want to hear this yourself." An hour later, I sat in my office with earbuds in, hands braced on the desk. Their voices poured into my ears, conspirators in surround sound. "Ethan, we can't wait until June. The accounts are frozen. He's on to us." Victoria: "So what do we do?" Ethan: "We go for an emergency divorce filing. Claim financial abuse, say he's controlling the money to intimidate you. We frame it as long-term emotional manipulation. Every gift, every vacation, every luxury becomes proof that he created financial dependency to control you." There was a beat of silence. Then Victoria's laugh, thin, brittle, like she was trying to convince herself. "That's bold." Ethan's reply was a scalpel. "It's effective, and if we get a restraining order, you'll have exclusive access to the house. By the time he scrambles to respond, we'll have leverage in court." I hit pause. My jaw locked so tight my teeth ached. 25 years of providing for my wife, every sacrifice, every hour I spent building our life was about to be paraded as evidence of abuse. They weren't just coming for my money, they were coming for my name. Later that afternoon, Lauren walked into my office unannounced. She sat across from me, posture stiff, eyes uneasy. "Dad, Mom's been acting strange," she began. "She told me you're controlling the finances to punish her. She wanted me to write something as a psychologist, saying you've shown signs of emotional abuse." The air in the room went razor sharp. "And what did you say?" I told her I can't diagnose without evidence, and that her story doesn't add up. She hesitated. "But it's more than that. Something feels wrong." I studied my daughter, the one person in this mess whose loyalty I could trust. "Lauren, you need to hear something." I pressed play on the recording from Ethan's window. For 43 minutes she listened without moving, her face carved in stone as her mother and husband dismantled my life with surgical precision. When the final word faded, she drew in a long breath and let it out slowly. I knew something was off. But this? She shook her head, her voice like steel. "Dad, I'm with you. Ethan and I are done." That night, Tony checked in again. He'd tailed them to Ethan's office, blinds drawn, voices sharp enough to cut glass. "Ethan, if he has a recording, we're dead." Victoria: "Maybe he doesn't. He's just acting suspicious to rattle us." Ethan: "We assume the worst. We file Thursday. We hit him with abuse claims, restraining orders, anything that forces him into defense." Tony's chuckle crackled through the line. "They're scared, Mike. Real scared." Good. Fear made people careless. Careless made them mine. By the time they stepped into court, thinking they were springing a trap, they'd never realized they were walking straight into the one I'd been building from the moment I heard them whisper through that open window. Thursday morning, the Denver County Courthouse smelled faintly of burnt coffee and disinfectant, like every building permit hearing I'd ever sat through. But today wasn't business. Today was war. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table in a navy dress, pearls catching the light. Her hair was pulled tight, her posture immaculate, every inch the wronged wife. Beside her, attorney Linda Hawthorne fussed with a stack of papers like she was about to unveil a scandal. Ethan lounged in the gallery, perfectly groomed, watching the scene with the smug detachment of a man who thought he'd already won. Judge Patricia Hendricks glanced over her glasses. "Mrs. Grant, you've requested an emergency protective order, citing financial abuse and intimidation by your husband. Please describe the incidents that caused you to fear for your safety." Victoria's voice quivered, but it was the kind of tremor you practice in front of a mirror. "For months, Michael has restricted my access to our accounts. He's monitored my spending, threatened to leave me with nothing if I try to leave. Last week, he cut me off entirely. I couldn't even buy groceries." She turned her eyes toward me, letting her mouth pinch just enough to signal silent suffering. Judge Hendricks turned to my attorney. "Response?" James Morrison rose, calm as if this were just another day in court. "Your Honor, these allegations are false. In fact, we have irrefutable evidence that Mrs. Grant's actions are part of a calculated conspiracy with her son-in-law to defraud Mr. Grant of marital assets. The judge's brows rose. That's a serious claim. Yes, Your Honor. Which is why we'd like to introduce Exhibit A. James connected his phone to the courtroom speakers. A second of static, and then Ethan's voice filled the chamber. When the old man finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for. Victoria froze mid-breath. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously, but the poison was already spreading through the room. For 43 unbroken minutes, the courtroom heard every mocking laugh, every cold calculation, every line where they twisted my generosity into a weapon. When Victoria's voice bragged, 25 years of playing the devoted wife, the judge's face went to stone. When it ended, the silence was thick enough to choke on. Mrs. Grant, Judge Hendricks said, "Do you have any response?" Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came. Linda Hawthorne cleared her throat. "Your Honor, I request permission to withdraw from representation. I was not informed of these facts prior to filing." "Granted," the judge said sharply. Then, to Victoria, "Your petition is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for possible perjury charges." The gavel fell loud, final, like the last nail in a coffin. Ethan shot to his feet, muttering something about making a call. I caught his gaze and held it long enough to let him know. His empire of lies had just collapsed. In the hallway, Lauren was waiting. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than I've been in months," I said. We passed Victoria on a bench, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the floor. Ethan was already gone. Outside, the Colorado air was crisp, bright, the kind of morning that feels like the start of something new. For me, it was freedom. For them, it was the start of the end. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Victoria's memory had conveniently failed her when she hatched her plan, but the prenuptial agreement she signed back in 1995 hadn't forgotten a thing. The document she once brushed off as just a formality now sealed her fate. A modest asset split, no spousal support, and not a single share of Grant Construction. Her attempt to smear me as an abuser had detonated in her own hands. Even her attorney refused to touch her case again. The perjury investigation remained open, hanging over her like a storm cloud she couldn't outrun. Ethan's fall was quicker and crueler. The Colorado Bar Association suspended his license within days. Then came the hammer blow, $87,000 in mismanaged client trust funds. That suspension became a permanent disbarment. The last I heard, he'd slunk out of Denver, working as a paralegal in some out-of-state strip mall law office. Lauren filed for divorce the day after court. She sat across from me over coffee, her expression steady. "I'm not doing this out of anger," she said, "but out of principle." She rebuilt her practice with a new mission, helping families spot manipulation and emotional abuse before it's too late. If there was one good thing to come from this, it was watching my daughter choose integrity over comfort. Victoria? I see her sometimes at the mall, working retail at a high-end department store. She avoids my eyes. The woman who once measured her worth in country club memberships and designer handbags now folds dresses for women half her age. As for me, Grant Construction is busier than ever. Word of my family difficulties traveled fast, and instead of hurting me, it rallied clients and contractors to my side. We've taken on more projects than I could have imagined. My crew says the air on job sites feels lighter. The house is quieter now. Not staged, not tense, just quiet. The kind of quiet you earn. Some mornings it's just the hum of the furnace, or rain tapping the windows I installed with my own hands. I've learned something through all this. Money can be replaced, businesses can be rebuilt, reputations can be restored, but trust? Once it's gone, it's gone. And when someone shows you they're willing to destroy you for their own gain, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to make sure they never get the chance again. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Protect what you've built not just with contracts and bank accounts, but with vigilance. Because sometimes, the deadliest threats don't come from strangers. They're sitting across from you at the dinner table, smiling while they sharpen the knife.